I will concede, Ambrosia, you got dealt a crappy hand in life. You and I first met when I was prosecutor. You were 15 years old, and you were on a roll, and it was all uphill. You were defiant, and you were going to do what you were going to do, and you were young, and you survived all of that. But you got a long, long history as a thief. At some point, excuses run out.
I'm really ashamed and embarrassed about what I did. I made a really irrational decision, and it was stupid.
I don't believe she's sorry. I believe she's sorry she got caught. Instead of taking responsibility, it's immediately blaming the person and saying, hey, you're ruining my life because you turned me into the police. This is a person with 4 prior felonies and 24 misdemeanors. And most of them, if you look through it, they're crimes of moral turpitude. So we're dealing with somebody who's extremely dishonest. To make sure that we live in a society that's decent and charitable. And you get somebody who rips it off and says, I'm sorry. There's nothing in this that indicates sorrow. Absolutely nothing. Enough is enough.
So. Okay. Go! You hand me my spinning box.
Now go.
All right, this is a special record being made in the 45th Circuit Court. This is Judge Jeffrey Middleton, 3B District Court, appearing by assignment in this matter. We're all cross-sworn. And Judge Stutzman, at the time this matter was originally scheduled for sentencing, learned that he had a conflict and wasn't able to do the sentence. And the matter was then assigned to me. Well, I accepted the assignment. So the matter was scheduled for sentencing today. The pre-sentence investigation report had been prepared by Agent Melinda Albert from the Department of Corrections. She is not here, but the DOC supervisor, Lisa Martin, is here. Hello. Prosecuting Attorney David Marvin is here. Ambrosia Adams is here, and her attorney Ross Truckee is also here. I'm familiar with Miss Adams from some of my own cases. In fact, she's on a probation to me presently. There's some problems with that one. But this matter is scheduled for sentencing here at this appointed hour. Mr. Truckee advised me about 2 minutes ago. He's got some issues he'd like to bring up at the outset. And so let's begin. Mr. Truckee?
Yes, Ms. Adams is preliminarily eligible for swift and sure sanctions probation, problem solving court. And I'd ask that this court grant us leave to submit that referral, have her screened for that process before moving forward with sentencing, as the sentencing recommendation of PSI is a fairly significant sanction. So that's our position today regarding any preliminary matter.
Ms. Martin, could you unmute? The guidelines, and we haven't confirmed them here, call for a prison sentence. The guideline range is 12 to 30 months. The agent recommendation is 1.5 years to 18 months to 21 months. Anyway, the recommendation is for a prison sentence. This is an uttering and publishing and forgery case of less than $500, which is traditionally not the type of case that results in a prison sentence. Ms. Adams has such a criminal history and lack of remorse that I think the recommendation was for prison. My question for you is, am I required to do that? I'm not inclined to sentence the defendant into the Swift and Sure program. She has failed 4 previous probations for me and is failing one right now. She's also failed, I think, some circuit court probations. And now we're at the 11th hour and 59th minute, and they come in and say, well, hey, I'd like to be considered for swift and sure. So my question is whether I'm required upon defendant's request to set her for screening for swift and sure.
I don't believe that you're required at all. If you chose to do so, she would still need to be screened by an assessor for the program. And just because it says preliminarily eligible, that's only based on the compass scores. So
Yes.
one of the swift and sure assessors would have to do a complete assessment evaluation with her and determine if she would be appropriate for the program. So,
Well, the agent didn't recommend the program.
No.
All right. I told you, Mr. Truckee and Mr. Marvin, before we turned the record on, that I was not contemplating swift or sure. I also wasn't contemplating sentencing the defendant to a prison sentence, meaning I would have to depart under the guidelines. But as I said, this isn't the type of case that would normally result in a prison sentence involving a couple of stolen and forged checks. So I will note that you have requested a referral to the swift and sure program and an evaluation, and I'm declining to accept that. And I'm prepared to proceed to sentence at this time. All right, let's start off with the pre-sentence investigation report. Mr. Truckee, do you have any corrections or additions or deletions to that report?
On page 4, it indicates restitution repayable to Kellogg Community College. I believe that's supposed to be Kellogg Community Credit Union.
I saw the same thing. I see it on page 2. Yeah, I crossed that out. It is otherwise referred to as Kellogg's Community Credit Union, but at that particular spot, it's Kellogg Community College. So I've made that correction.
I believe that was my correction, Your Honor.
Mr. Marvin?
I have none.
Your Honor, can I point out too that the sentencing date is different now?
Oh, yes.
So
Good
at the
point.
top of the pre-sentence investigation, 145.
Sentence date should say 4/10/24. Thank you, Ms. Martin.
Well,
All right, well then let's talk about the sentencing guidelines. And at one time I was quite conversant in the sentencing guidelines, but I haven't done a felony trial in 22 years. But let's talk about this. Prior record variable score, Ms. Adams was scored as PRV 1, 20 points, PRV 2, 20 points, PRV 3, 10 points, PRV 4, 5 points, PRV 8, 20 points, PRV 6, 0, and prior record variable 7, 0. For a total prior record variable of 80 with a PRV level of F. Mr. Truckee, do you have any objection to those?
No objection to the prior record variables.
All right, how about Mr. Marvin, do you?
Your Honor, I was reviewing along as you read that. I'm not sure what I'm looking at, but those are not the same numbers. I had the final PRV as 80,
Yes.
but I had PRV 1, for example, was 25, not 20.
Well, I may have misspoken. It
Okay.
is 25.
And then you cited a PRV 8, but I don't see a PRV 8.
PRV 6.
6
So thank
was
you.
0.
I guess I would put that up to the judge's vision. That looked like an
Okay,
8, but
okay.
it's-
Other than that, you're right.
what I quoted only adds up to 75. So thank you for your
Okay.
corrections. If we do PRV at 25 rather than 20, it's 80 total PRV points.
And I agree then.
All right, thank you. You're paying close attention. All right, let's talk about offense variables. OV1, 0, OV2, 0, OV3, 0, OV4, 0, OV9, 0, OV10, 0, OV12, 10, OV13, 0, OV 14-0, OV 16-1, OV 19, I almost said 18 again, OV 19-0, OV 20-0. So this is a check case which does not have a lot of strong offense variables. Total is 11 points for an offense variable level of 11. Is that agreeable to you, Mr. Truckee?
The argued that the events were not contemporaneous. One of the checks involved was dated January the 28th, and one was dated February the 16th.
Yes, I couldn't tell from the information that I had whether these were both presented at the same time. The complaint, the complaint says that on or about January 28th of 2023. Well, that can't be right for the first check because the first check wasn't dated until February 16th, but it is just on or about. So I can't tell whether these were both presented at the same time or at separate times into the defendant's account, but the checks are of two different dates. So which offense variable are you referring to?
Only 12.
Mr. Marvin, you have any input on that?
Yeah, I think that what's contemporaneous is the fact that it was the same victim and it was pursuant to the same MO, and it was the opportunity arose where she worked someplace and took advantage of that. So during that time period, very relatively quickly, this happened.
Well, there are two separate checks written by two separate check writers. One check of $140 is from Linda Fair, and that was drawn on Kellogg Community Credit Union. February 16th is the date of that. The other check is Horizon Bank. The complaining witness is Joyce Moore, and the date on that check is January 28th. So we have two separate victims, two separate banks. And that's sufficient for me for contemporaneous felonious criminal acts under OV 12. And that's MCL 777.421 parent B. And I would award 10 points for that contemporaneous offense variable. So, Mr. Truckee, thank you for noting that, but I will grant 10 points for OV 12, which gives us a offense variable of 2 and a prior record variable of F2 with a guideline range of 12 to 30 months. Mr. Truckee, what would you like me to know?
Well, I can't tell Your Honor a whole lot about Miss Adams that you don't already know. It's been a long road. One of the most positive things I can say about her, I've known her for quite some time myself. The drug use has changed a large amount in her life. You know, that Miss Adams used to have a very significant methamphetamine problem that led to all sorts of negative conduct. She's kind of finally, I don't know if she's aged out. I like to think she's grown out of that. She's beginning to turn a corner. This conduct is reprehensible, and she knows it's reprehensible. There is some effort in the PSI that I'm sure you've read that the agent believes that she tries to justify, and I think that that's a learned behavior from 40 plus years of having to justify everything about one's existence. Miss Adams, she's in a long-term relationship with Mr. Mangold. He was recently sentenced to prison, for better or worse. You know, he's dealing with his issue.
Well, he'd been in recovery and was doing great till he relapsed. But it's been a struggle for him too.
And I think that was a big eye opener for Miss Adams to be at his sentencing and see someone she cares about and has worked on walking in recovery go to prison because things weren't quite ready for him yet on the outside. she's working 2 jobs, making her own money legitimately in a way that hadn't been her way for a long, long time. She's got her own home. I don't believe any other adults are living in that home. There's a spot reserved for Mr. Mangold, and that's it, which is a big step forward, as you know. She's trying to put together a very shattered existence that has, just 20 years ago, I'd argue that it was all her childhood's fault, and that's all we've got. Today, it's Miss Adams' fault. She's made a lot of decisions as an adult. She knows that. But I can't imagine a prison cell or a lengthy jail sentence for $365, despite the victim being a very sympathetic victim. Obviously, no one can support a theft from a church. But just the math of this doesn't quite work out to put her in a prison cell. So I ask Your Honor to depart from the recommendation on the downward side, and anything that can be done to allow her to continue her productive contributions to society through work be done. She'd be hopeful for a probation. I recognize that she's failed probation many times. I think that was a different Ambrosia, but that's Your Honor's court. I would just ask Your Honor to depart to the minimum jail sentence and something that fits the amounts that we're talking about here.
I will concede, Ambrosia, you got dealt a crappy hand in life. You and I first met when I was prosecutor, and you were 15 years old. And you were on a roll, and it was all uphill. You were defiant, and you were going to do what you were going to do, and you were young, and you survived all of that. But you got a long, long history as a thief. At some point, excuses run out. So I was distressed by some things that I saw in the pre-sentence report of lack of remorse when Pastor Smith confronted you on this, and you were mad at him and said he was ruining your life, and you felt it was the church and it was a nonprofit, so you ought to just be able to take this. That showed a distinct lack of remorse. Also, I'm not clear what happened. Did you take both of these checks at the same time?
Yes.
All right. And so it would have been sometime after February 16th.
Yeah.
So there was the act of actually stealing the checks and then forging them. Forging a check is changing it in some way on its face. And then you change the payee to make it payable, both of these, to Ambrosia Adams. So that's one part. First you stole them, then you took them and you altered them, you forged them. Then the uttering and publishing of the check is the actual presentation to the bank for payment. And you took these checks and put them in your account. I don't know how you thought somebody wasn't going to notice this, but so there were actually 3 separate crimes: stealing them, forging them, and presenting them for payment. And in the power of the banking lobby, I've said this over the years, these are old statutes. Uttering and publishing and forgery are old. The maximum punishment is 14 years in jail. You can hit somebody with a stick and get aggravated assault. That's 1 year. You can have assault with intent to commit great bodily harm, and that's 10 years. But if you forge and present a $140 check, it's a 14-year felony. And it's awfully difficult to get a sentencing guideline in the prison range for this sort of property crime. Your adult career with dishonesty and theft started when I was still prosecutor in 2000, filing a false police report as a felony reduced to a misdemeanor. Judge McManus put you in jail and put you on probation. You failed to complete the terms of your probation and it was revoked. 2001, you had a retail fraud in the 3rd degree. You were placed on probation, I believe, by Judge Welty, and your probation was revoked. 2002, you stole 4 packs of cigarettes and got another retail fraud in the 3rd degree. 2004, they charged it as larceny in a building. You can no longer do that. And that was bound over to circuit court and became a felony charge. In 2000, there was another armed robbery case that got dismissed. That was after I was judge. That would have been Mr. McDonough. A resisting and obstructing felony charge reduced to a misdemeanor in 2004. Another retail fraud, 2nd, reduced to a 3rd in 2007. Then you had some cases in Indiana in 2010. 2013, you had a larceny over 200 that was dismissed, and I used your bond to pay off a bunch of tickets. 2014, you had a domestic violence charge. I put you on probation and you failed to do the probation and I revoked it. You did 28 days in jail. Then the last thing you needed in your life was methamphetamine. And in 2016, methamphetamine shows up. 2016, you have a possession of methamphetamine charge and you're bound over to circuit court, and that unpleasant journey starts. 2018, you had a previous uttering and publishing with 4 counts, bound over to circuit court as a felony. 2020, you were charged with possession of methamphetamine. It was reduced to a misdemeanor in my court for use of methamphetamine. Again, you didn't do what you were supposed to do on your probation. You got 90 days in jail. As part of that, another possession of methamphetamine case from 2021 was dismissed. Then you have the larceny from 2022 where you stole that package off your neighbor's porch. I put you on a non-reporting probation, ordering you to do community service, which you never did. So your probation agent, Matt Huff, has filed a probation violation petition to revoke that probation. You got what I thought was a gift when I saw you last, and I gave you about the minimalist sentences I could do and put you on a community service, and you didn't even do that. So that matter is set for a probation violation a little later this month. I've got it in front of me. It's file 222510. And that brings us to this case. There are also some Indiana charges and some traffic charges and some other non-theft related crimes which go into your criminal history. The police report, or the affidavit of probable cause, and the pre-sentence report also indicate that you're working at Home Depot and they believe you were stealing from them. So I don't know what the status of that job is. That the floral job at Home Depot, or is it a separate job at Home
No,
Depot?
that was an old job. An old job, but it was found out that it was my coworker that was stealing.
Well, there's no.
Nothing ever came of it for me.
I'm sure it didn't. There wasn't anything on there. But anyway, that's still floating around. So I'll hear from you and then we'll hear from Mr. Marvin. What would you like me to know?
That I'm sorry. I'm really ashamed and embarrassed about what I did. I made a really irrational decision and it was stupid.
Well, it was several decisions and it didn't just like sneak up on you. I mean, you stole it, then you forged them, then you drove them to your bank and deposited them and spent the money. So it wasn't like an instantaneous thing like when you stole the neighbor's package off his porch. It was a series of things which just goes to your thinking like a thief. And Mr. Truckee, I think, hit it on the head. It's sort of been your go-to mechanism. And I don't know what to do about it. I keep trying probation. I tried the last probation with just community service, and you didn't even do that. I don't think you deserve a prison sentence, but you deserve a sanction. And as Mr. Truckee indicates, this was a church that had reached out to you and helped you with this job, and you paid them back by stealing from them and then justifying it by, well, they're a nonprofit and I needed help, so they could help me. And then being mad at them when they terminated your position. Mr. Marvin, what's your thought here?
I don't believe she's sorry. I believe she's sorry she got caught. The report says that an incident already happened, and they were good enough people, that church, that they said that they would just let it go. And instead of letting it go, she did it again. Then, instead of taking responsibility, it's immediately blaming the person and saying, hey, you're ruining my life because you turned me into the police. This is a person with 4 prior felonies and 24 misdemeanors. And most of them, if you look through it, they're crimes of moral turpitude. So we're dealing with somebody who's extremely dishonest. I don't like that. And I will disagree with Your Honor with respect to a 14-year sanction for something like this. I think there's a reason the legislative body put that together and put that number on there. We can't live in a society where somebody goes and chaos would happen if everybody stole. There has to be a very serious, everything would break down. We have businesses that run and banks that operate, and that's how we function. That's how we organize our society. And if you have people doing this over and over and over and over and over again, and I wish I knew how many times, because I say over and over that many times, that's who we're dealing with. And I don't agree. I do think the problem that I've got now is this isn't the first, second, third, fourth time. This is countless times. And now this county is going to house her at that jail. And there are people who should be in that jail that are violent and extreme risk to society right now. That's who I want to spend my money jailed. I would rather the Department of Corrections pay for this burden. And it's not that this isn't the first time. And we say it was only $326, but it was also Mrs. Moore and Mrs. Fair. These are people who donate money to make sure that we live in a society that's decent and charitable. And you get somebody who rips it off and says, I'm sorry. There's nothing in this that indicates sorrow. Absolutely nothing. There is, I'm sorry, got caught. I just don't agree. I think that the people who wrote this are well-versed in these types of crimes, and I would follow the recommendation. I just don't like the idea that we're still going to burden this county on this problem. Enough is enough. So I would ask you to follow the recommendation. And again, it's not $326. That's not the point here. There's a bigger problem here. You put a dollar amount on it, but this is a matter of principle at this point. Thank you.
Are you Alexandra? I thought that was you. I haven't seen you since one day in one here, but I thought that was you. So your kids are here and watching this. Ambrosia, I don't think the problem right now is methamphetamine. I think you're doing okay drug-wise. You look good. You're employed at 2 jobs. You're maintaining a house, which you couldn't do if you were in the throes of meth. So I think meth isn't the issue right now. I think it's just the way you think. Mr. Marvin is asking me to follow the sentencing guidelines and the recommendation and send you to prison. And since you were 15 years old, if you kept doing what you're doing, one day they say, you're going to go to prison. Although his rationale is a little different than mine. He's like, well, I don't want to spend the St. Joe County taxpayers' money. I'd rather spend the state prison's money. But the same question is, are you worth a jail bed for being a thief? And the answer is yes. Your remorse is not sincere. You can't stop yourself from stealing. You are on a probation right now to me that you have not successfully completed the terms of probation, and all you had to do was community service, which you did none. And I don't even quite understand that. And I'm not clear. Is the rest, the banks, I think, made the customers whole, which made
Correct.
the customers made the checks to the church. And then the defendant made the checks out to herself. So the bank reimbursed the church, but I don't know if they took the money out of Ambrosia's account. That's what she contended. I've already paid this back because the bank took it out of my account. And I don't know whether that's accurate or not. The recommendation is to pay $385 in restitution, but I can't tell whether it's already been paid. Ambrosia, what do you know about that?
That it's been paid.
It was taken out of your account?
Yes.
Yeah, I believe Ambrosia did provide to me a document that indicates, there's two documents indicating that the money was taken from her account.
My account to their account. I did everything on mobile deposit. So everything, the check was took in with my phone and deposited into my PNC account. And everything was done electronically.
All
I
right,
didn't have
so
to ever go in there.
that day, you saw the checks and took them, and then you had to take them somewhere and alter the face of them. You had to make it payable to you.
The checks had plenty of room underneath for me to just write my name because it was stamped with the church's name. Just a stamp, right up, pay to the order of, and then boom, stamp. And then plenty of room for me to write my name.
So you just wrote your
I
name?
just wrote my
into it.
name.
All right.
That's it. That's all I did. And my only, yeah,
All right, and so then you took a picture of that part of the check and
And-
electronically sent it to your bank.
deposited.
All right, and then did you spend the money?
Yeah, on bills.
Your Honor,
Yes?
there was a formal and proper restitution request submitted. It should be in the file.
Mhm.
Yes.
And I'm suggesting that Horizon Bank and Kellogg Community Credit Union are more trustworthy than the defendant.
I have,
And they're saying that they are owed $225 and $140 respect. Yeah,
Yeah, which would mean she took the money and spent it. Then she would have had other money in her account to cover the
I
bank
did.
taking it out.
yeah.
So, I
And
will.
I'm in possession of a transaction report from Miss Adams Bank that indicates a deposit on 227, and then the balance decreases by the same amount on 317, as well as another 225 on February the 8th, and then the balance decreasing by the same amount on 728. I can't make heads or tails of what a DRU claims deposit or debit is, but that's what I'm in possession of. I've emailed that to Mr. Martin.
All right. I am confident the church and the two check writers were made whole. I'm not completely confident the bank was made whole. Now, this day has been coming. Do you have pets?
Yeah, I have pets, I have kids.
Well, have you made any provision for who's going to be in your house if you go away?
Yes,
All right, who's going to maintain your house?
my boyfriend's family, it's his house and I'm maintaining it for him right now. And their family will be taking it back.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I thought it
didn't-
was your house rather than his.
Well, I pay bills and it is our house and I'm engaged. I just got
What's his out date?
2/22 of next year, like 10 months away.
And does your daughter live there too?
No, she has her own place. My son lives with me and his cat.
Okay, so there will be somebody in the house.
Sure, yeah.
Okay,
Well,
all right. Any final words anybody wants from me? All right, I am going to order that you pay a crime victims assessment of $130 as ordered by the court. he must pay an $80 state cost as ordered by the court. I'm going to reserve on the restitution. No, I'll put it on the defendant. Restitution is ordered in the amount of $365 to Kellogg Community Credit Union, which I can reconsider if the defendant can establish that amount has been repaid. She has 3 days of jail credit. I'm going to order 180 days jail. I'm not doing a probation. This is just pure sanction. I don't believe you need a prison sanction. Mr. Marvin's argument that the taxpayers are footing this bill is correct. But when you just have this much of a pattern of dishonesty and theft, a jail sentence is warranted. For the same reasons, Mr. Marvin doesn't want to take a jail bed at the jail. I don't want to take a jail bed at the Michigan Department of Corrections. I'm not doing a probation. There's no probation center. There's no work release. There's just jail. You teared up when I said one of these days you're going to go to prison, because one of these days you're going to go to
I've been
prison.
to prison, Your Honor.
I know you have in Indiana, but not in Michigan.
That was the best thing that ever happened to me. I don't need to go again, but
Well, apparently it
got a
didn't
lot of-
stick because you had multiple convictions after that, but that was a methamphetamine. But you're not dangerous.
no, I've had some good history. I mean,
I know, I've talked to you for 20 years. And you're harmful mostly to yourself. But a couple problems. One, you're not sincerely remorseful, and two, you won't stop doing it. So this isn't meth, this is theft. And I'm just doing a jail sentence, no probation oversight fee, no drug testing, nothing, just jail. You will be eligible to be a trustee. And I've still got a probation violation that you have on my case, which is set for the 25th of April. I was going to try to do it today, but I think I'll just leave it separately. You
Brandon,
never-
one question, sorry, but I want the record to be clear. You ordered restitution in the amount of $365 to KCCU,
Yes.
but it should be $225.
Oh, take
Yeah.
one to each bank.
Yeah, the $225 to Horizon.
All right. Yes, there it is. Thank you, David. 225 to Horizon Bank and 140 to Kellogg Community Credit Union. If necessary, you must execute a wage assignment to pay that restitution. And you're subject to contempt if you don't, because I did not put you on a probation. All right, you're going to be transported to the St. Joe County Jail. I'm glad there's people there to maintain the house. Your daughter's here to support you. Someone's going to take care of your cat. Maybe your job will be waiting for you when you get back. But this is just my last attempt at trying to get you to stop doing this. And I'll deal with your fail to comply with the terms of your probation and that porch theft case a little later this month. All right, you can go with the court officer. This record is completed.
thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Judge.
Are you kidding me? Oh my God. You have got to be kidding me. What is going on today? This is a joke. This is a joke. Today is an absolute joke. He needs an interpreter.
I need an interpreter when I cannot express myself something.
Oh my God, sir, put that cigarette out. I don't give a crap that you are outside of this. What is wrong with everybody today? You know what? Let's bring people to learn how to act in the courtroom.
Can you hear it? Can you hear it? Ma'am? Ma'am? Can you hear it? Okay.
I have no patience for that. But trust me, at the end of the day, I'm sitting up here, I'm the one that needs a drink.